This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Welcome to The Commercial Investing Show, where we analyze, explain, and exploit the opportunities presented in today's commercial property marketplace. If you're interested in apartments, mobile home parks, self-storage facilities, and other income property, you've come to the right place. We'll explore what's hot and what's not in markets nationwide in the relentless pursuit of return on investment. Here's your host, Jason Hartman.
Hey everybody, it is my pleasure to welcome a guest that I've been wanting to have on the show for many years, ever since reading his first book entitled Pitch Anything and his new book entitled Flip the Script, and it is none other than Oren Klaff. Oren, welcome. How are you?
Hey, thank you, Jason. I am well. My agent told me if I stuck it out for 10 years, I'd get invited to a podcast, and it finally happened. So this is amazing.
Yeah, well, you're just way too humble. But your books have just influenced a lot of people. They are excellent, great work on that. And, we're all in the business of persuasion, aren't we? We're in the business of selling our ideas, whether it be to our kids, our significant other. Most people think of it in a business context. You're doing a presentation, you're pitching to investors or your employees or staff or your boss, depending on what side of the table you're on. But this is just something that is universal. It applies to every single person on earth, and it is a very, very important skill. So with that, I don't know, take us where you want to go first.
When I went into the publisher, some years ago with Pitch Anything, they were like, we're not doing this stupid book.
Really?
And then, yeah. And then my agent was like, it really applies to everything and everybody. It's not just a business book. And then the McGraw-Hill read it and they go, this applies to me, I'm like,
yeah, right.
Yeah, right. And so it does. And so, for example, just really quick, I went to a meeting at an investment bank on like a $10 million deal. It was a real estate deal, which is, I know, the only thing you care about. But, there's other deals, Jason, in the world. All right.
No, I like all kinds of deals.
Calm yourself down there. There's other kinds of businesses. So I go into investment bank and I'm in their conference room, and there's 25 interns and associates in there. And I said to the guy I'm doing a deal with, hey, this is a $10 million deal. I'm not sure we need this big of a deal team. And they go, oh, no, they're all here just to get signatures on their book. So, so I get a lot of that feedback. I mean, but the best thing that ever happened to me, we were in Hawaii. And my son was 3, and we woke up early. 3-year-olds wake up early, and we went out to try and get something to eat, and just we're on Maui, and we saw a guy was in a jet ski store getting his jet skis ready and putting coconut water out and everything. We walked up, started talking to him. He goes, "Yeah, what? You're Oren Klaff?" I'm like, "Well, no." And they're like, "You are." And he goes, "Listen," and he tells me his whole story. "You're the reason I have this business." I'm a native Hawaiian. I live off in the hinterland on a farm. I never would have. So those are the stories that investment bankers, they can go f themselves. They're going to make money anyway. But
that's right.
When you hear those stories, so yeah, pitch is really important for all walks of life. And I think how I stepped into this is I had the same conventional thinking that everybody else did. You be nice to people. You be thorough in your work. You be, you chase deals. You'll always be closing. You look for angles. You show people what you can do. You be very companionable. If somebody asks you for a proposal, you send a proposal. You bend over backwards. You give them, if you're going to be at the lake, your grandmother's lake house for the weekend, you give them the fax number there, and and your backup phone number in case.
So the traditional stuff you're saying, of course, say please and thank you, keep your promises, over deliver, all the good stuff that, all of us have been taught. And it's good stuff for sure.
How to be super fucking nice and win great friends.
Right.
I read that. I was given that by a sales manager. Sure. And so, I was in this piece of infrastructure that was read in on that. And then I was in a deal. And my business partner, he was probably a $40 million guy at that time. And I was a negative, $40 million guy at the time. Well, not even that much, just like negative zero. Right. And so we're in a deal. I would have gotten $400,000 or $500,000 on the closing. And the investor started being difficult. Emails were going back and forth. They wouldn't sign the final paperwork. And my partner just sends one email, all caps in the subject line, lose my number. And I go,
very nice.
Oh my God. This, I can't believe it. Like all my dreams, everything, like I'm going to have to go work at, Starbucks. I don't know what's going to happen next. Right. And I was just sitting there holding my head in my hands, and bing, it was Microsoft, mail at that time. And it binged. I look and they go, oh, so sorry. We're wiring right away. We're closing immediately. We know we've been difficult. Really. And so that was like my first entry into like a different world in which you do not have to be needy. You don't have to chase people. You can have a set of your own values and want to close the deal, but still not put up with people making you fetch rocks.
Yeah. So that's frame control. And I know you talk about frame control a lot. But before you go into the frame control thing, like give us an overview of the basic pitch anything method, if you would. Like what's the overriding philosophy on it?
Sure. So I think the overriding philosophy is again, I know, Jason, you only gave us 11 and a half minutes, and each of these overriding philosophies are 25 minutes in and of their own. But I had hired a psychologist when I started getting an understanding of my partner, like what he was doing. Right. And we had made some money then. So I hired a psychologist for $10,000, like to unpack what he was doing. And, and I expected him to go through all these narratives and show me like the psychological persuasion, because it's not what I was good at. And so I go to his office. He was in a science lab at UCSD, and I get in there and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, you hired the wrong kind of psychologist. I'm a cognitive psychologist. We don't care about feelings or emotions or transactional conversations. I'm like, he goes, you just didn't do your research. You hired a cognitive psychologist. We only care about how information moves through the human brain. And I go, okay, well, since I paid you $10,000, what can you tell me about that? And he explained to me how information actually gets into the decision-making areas of the brain. And that was really the foundational philosophy of Pitch Anything. So it turns out you think information goes into your neocortex, this smart frontal lobe of your brain where it's, you go, hey, it's an 18% IRR, 6.5% cash on cash, 3-year hold, multifamily infill Florida, in which the fix and flip is, 200,000, and the ROI on the cap investment, is 42%. And if we do a 5-year hold, it's a 21% IRR with a sane exit strategy on a 7 cap. Right. You have that narrative, and the person listening to that goes, ugh, you think it goes into their smart part of the brain because that's what you think with, but really it enters a part of the brain that is much more focused on eat, kill, mate. And so you're saying all that stuff, and they're literally, and you felt this in your own mind. I'm hungry, and also, is this somebody I should kill? Right?
Or should I mate with them?
Or should I mate with them and then kill them? No, bees do that. And the fundamental processing input regions of the brain, we ended up calling the crocodile brain. And that's where your information enters. And it is chopped up by such gross, generic, big filters that all of the messaging that you're starting with is lost, right? And it's just going, what is this dangerous? And then ultimately the neocortex will go, hey, I'm being asked to do some work. And it will start shoving instructions down to these lower parts of the brain, which is, have I ever seen this before? Have I ever solved this problem before? Do I think I can solve this problem without the super high expensive functioning parts of the brain? Can I push this problem to a different part of the brain? Or can I guess what the answer is without having to engage?
Okay.
And so that's the instruction set of the mind of the person you're trying to sell at 18% IRR to.
Okay.
So the way that you start to communicate with someone and the way that they input that information into their mind are widely disparate. Then the next thing is if you can sort of wiggle, and the way you get past that crocodile brain is you raise the stakes, you make it visual, and you make it novel, and you make it in story form. We don't have enough time to get in all that, but you know, nobody here is a dummy. Visual, high stakes, novel, new, intriguing, survival based, and in a around human narratives. Buildings. A guy once told me, buildings are only worth what the people who go in and out of them do with them, right? And so you probably have like that. But so even real estate needs to be framed in human narratives, and so that's how information gets past the crocodile brain up into the rest of the brain. The problem is there's another big section of the brain, the midbrain, that evaluates social status. And you cannot access the decision-making part of the human mind from a low social status. So if somebody perceives himself to be powerful and you to be low on the social food chain, a couple behaviors exhibit.
They're not going to listen to you, in other words, right?
They'll listen to you. They will see you at a superficial level, right? So they don't see your character. They don't see your value. They don't see your experience. They see you transactionally. The second thing is they will take risks around you they would not take with a high status person. They're not going to slap you on the butt in today's world, but they'll pick up their phone, start texting, say, excuse me, maybe take a text, take a call. Those are the kinds of things they'll do. They'll interrupt you.
Oh, that's what you mean by risk. In other words, they'll act badly. Right. Okay.
Right. Yeah. They'll take risky behaviors around you, things that if they were at Bank of America trying to get $100 million ABL, they would not do. Right. Oh, can you hold on? This is my gardener. I got this. Right. Oh, this is my contractor. He needs to know what color chartreuse, we're painting the bathroom. So they would not do that at the Bank of America decision committee because that would be a high stakes environment for them. So they'll see you superficially. They will take risks around you, and they will be very transactional in nature, right? And until you raise your status, and they will also not feel any urgency to proceed with you, right? So from a low status position, it is very difficult to pitch or sell anything. So now you're starting to see the thesis emerge, right? Yep. Information needs to be set up as high stakes. You need to be set up as high status. It needs to follow a narrative that investors and buyers think in. That narrative tends to be around humans, not around buildings or IRR. It needs to be novel or can't engage the upper regions of the brain. And it needs to get around this instruction set, which says, if I can guess what this is, I don't want to work on it. I'm just going to jump to the guess and then use the resources of the brain to solve some other problems that I think are more important. So you believe when you start talking, you're just sending a fax signal, to that same part of the mind in the person you're talking to, and that is not in any way true. And so this is why neediness, I think was chapter 2 in the book. Neediness kills deals. Not necessarily because needy is a bad thing. It's because it's super low status.
Okay, so that's the frame control part, and that's excellent. So, everybody, as you're saying all this, I think now that they understand that, they're agreeing with you, but they're asking the $1 million question, which is, how do I do that? How do I increase my status? How do I make it urgent? You didn't say it that way, but essentially, how do they do all these steps? There's lots of stuff about being a good storyteller, tell human stories you talked about, right? Yeah. But first, let's start. Frame control is what you start with. So I think that's maybe the first one, right? How do you increase your status?
Yeah. And just a pet peeve of mine. I bought, because it's my job, every single book on how to tell a story, how to tell a business story, right? And I'll tell you what those books are about. Right. How to not tell a business story. So we can touch on that or do that next time. But that is 100% done wrong. In all those books, what they try to do is take the movie architecture, and put it into a business environment,
like a hero's journey.
A hero's journey, right? That's not a pitch. Hero's journey is good for your origin story. Where you came from should be the hero's journey, but a pitch, is not the hero's journey. But so first of all, I would say start simple. If you're talking to someone who perceives that they're higher status than you, which is basically any investor, right? And your mom. But when I get on call, I have to get on call with billion-dollar funds as you do. I've been on call with, probably 13, 15 billionaires, many billion-dollar funds, but $100 million fund, 10 million. And typically they'll just show up late.
Yep.
Because it's a busy world. They're busy. We've wheedled our way into a larger organization than us. They perceive themselves as busy, and they are busy, and they come late. And so when you talk about frame control, I'll start these calls off and I'll say, hey, Jason, welcome to the 11:05 call.
Okay, so the appointment was at 11, in your example, and you're saying that to the billionaire, welcome to the 11:05 call, right?
I've done this 1,000 times and multiplied that. The guys in my program, and in Pitch Anything have done this 10,000, thousands of, more times than that.
Sure.
And they will always go, I'm sorry. Every single person, from the Shark Tank guys on down, know in our culture, time is money. There's nothing more valuable than time.
Right.
Promptness and it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire. It's just a mark of professionalism and personal integrity. Right. Mm-hmm. And so immediately the call is starting out with them saying, I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Right. And then, you just start light. And I will say, hey, I'm really excited about this call. And this will sound needy for a second, so don't let the whole thing unfold. So I'm really excited about this call. We've been wanting to meet you guys for a long time. We actually prepared a presentation. This is fantastic. If we did a close with you, this would be, you guys would be one of the biggest firm. We're excited to be here. And I can't imagine a firm we'd like to work with more. But
so it seems like you're giving up a little bit of frame there.
Right. So that would be neediness. That would be neediness 101. So think of every needy thing you could possibly say. You could just keep going. Right. I'll give you my secret cell phone number. If you can't reach me, and we do a deal, you could call my wife and she'll come find me. But I was looking on your website and there's a couple things that are on there that are confusing to me and don't make sense why someone in your position will be doing these things. So I did a little digging. I saw some, videos and blogs, hard to understand what's behind it. And I'd want to clear up some things about you before we'd actually be able to do something. So as much as it's our job today to present our program to you, what we're doing, how it works, the ROI, IRR, hold period, comparables, and everything like that, we do have to reserve some time because it's also our job to do some important diligence on.
Okay, so there you're flipping the script for sure, right? You're making them earn it a bit. So that's frame control. Anything else on frame control?
Sure. There's hundreds of things, right? Right before this one, they'll say, hey, send us over these slides and, the deck. And, if you can also send over a proposal or a term sheet, we'll take a look at it. If we have any questions, we'll get back to you. Then I will say, well, a proposal or a term sheet, sure. What would be in it? Should we talk about that? For business guys, it would be who do SaaS software or service agreements or professionals, professional advisors. They'll always get, hey, send me over a proposal. Great. Happy to do that. We don't do proposals. We do agreements. What will be in the agreement? So let's talk through that. So that would be another very clean version of frame control because the follow-up to that, these aren't, this is not Zig Ziglar's 99 ways, close a deal. It's true. The morality, the moral center frame. So, I say, look, firms that are not busy, that's what they have, a department that all day long sends out proposals and does follow up on proposals. We're busy, right? If we have an agreement, we'll write it up. But let's get some basic deal points. We can do it now. We can set another call to do it.
I get it. The proposal is usually a blow off thing. So I got you there. Yeah.
So that falls under this, right? Like, hey, I won't do this for you, but I will do it with you. Okay. And that is frame control 101, which is, listen, I'm not going to work harder on your business, on your wealth management program, on your investment portfolio than you will. That makes no sense, right? You have all the upside, and we're providing some of it, but I'm not going to work harder on this than you will. I won't do this for you. I will do it with you. So that's frame control 101.
Okay.
Right. So I think this is a very this that's up on the screen here. Hey, glad we could finally get our calendars synced up. I know you're as busy as I am. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 words.
Right. Yeah. And that's a frame control too, because you're notifying them that you're busy too, just like they are. Yeah. Got it. It's
a time frame. Your time. Sad to notify you of this, Jason, but the reality is your time is not more valuable than mine.
Right.
Your firm is much larger than us. You guys did a deal with Yahoo back in whatever. That's very exciting, but this deal is now, and I'm as busy as you are. It's important to get our calendars synced up. And as much as you are evaluating us, we also have to leave some time where we can evaluate you and decide if anything we should be doing together.
That's an example of course, frame control, but it's also flipping the script, right? I mean,
yes.
Are those synonymous?
I would call this setting the frame.
Okay.
So I think after this is very simple stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Frame control implies a level of control, and you're pulling levers. So when you're controlling something, there's risk and reward. So these are things that anybody can do without any follow-up, because you're just setting the frame. And, by frame, it's like you're setting the boundary conditions that you can hold the counterparty accountable for. And that's why I call it setting the frame. And it is under frame control. Okay. So, this is another one. So counterparties love wasting your time, right? So they'll say things like, hey, we're not clear about the market size. We need to see more about the comparables. We'd like another Argus run, that shows a different, look on it, all these kinds of things. And again, now this would be frame control, right? We're super busy and pretty choosy about how we work with. And we also need to be pretty efficient on our time.
And I think this is excellent stuff. I just want to make sure we cover more of your work. So,
sure.
If you want to jump from the frame control topic to moving in deeper into your stuff, feel free. But it's up to you.
Yeah. The reason is, Jason, this is stuff that people can actually do this afternoon, right? I want to get into status next, and I think So some interesting topics around status. Let me share one more of these that, somebody can do.
Sure.
And then we'll cruise through it. This is for the business guys out there, right? It's like this falls in terms of frame control. What I see people do is whenever a buyer or investor asks a question, right? The seller or the offerer feels like they always have to answer every question, right? And so this is a pretty good example. Like, oh, hey, how much is it, or what's the valuation? Tends to be a good one, for deals, right? Well, we already know what the valuation of the price is, right? It's more than you want to pay and less than I want to charge. When we get to value, right? When we get to valuation, look, I promise you, it's straight down the middle. It's not going to, it's not 30 times, revenue kind of deal, but we don't even know if we like each other. Don't know if you have the capital available to do this deal. We don't know what kind of deals you actually do, with your capital. We don't know how you behave as an investor, and you haven't really seen key assumptions on the pro forma of the deal. Let's just say, let's get to all that stuff, right? We'll get to valuation. If you don't like it, opt out. But, at the moment, just suspend disbelief.
Right.
That when we turn over the piece of paper and there's a number on it, you go, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep.
And so those are all frame control. You don't have to answer every question. You do have to reframe the question as confirmatory diligence and not something really worth spending time on at the moment. Then you get into subjects and flip the script. The reason people, I think in terms of pitch and close and really getting a deal, across the line and funded, falls apart on certainty. So what happens is people can like the asset. They can like the deal. They can be excited about it. They give positive feedback around it. There's lots of conversation. Paperwork even starts moving. A data room opens up, multiple presentations, and it really feels like there's momentum and go forward, right? And then ultimately, these things can hit a stall point. And the stall point is just the certainty was not high enough they like it, but they didn't feel that once the capital changed hands from them to us, that they would actually get the delivered results, largely because of you. And I think certainty, the core of certainty, comes from your expert status, the understanding of you as an expert in this particular domain.
That's how you're going to convey certainty to their mind that they're talking to an expert, right?
Correct. So you experience this all over your own life. Like you go to a mechanic and you go, there's something wrong with my car.
Oh, I think it's software is that, because tech is so complex, right? It just never works like you think it's going to work, right? So you buy a new software program and,
100%.
you spend a fortune and the project just turns into this disaster. I mean, been there a few times.
And that's why the certainty problem exists.
Yeah.
Right? But here's the way if I just use a car, like what kind of car do you have any old crappy cars?
No old crappy cars.
Okay, I do. I have a bunch of cars, but I have a 1983 Toyota pickup. So old crappy cars still drive around. So you take it to the shop, and and they go, yeah, it's making a noise, tick tick tick. Leave it here, and it's $350 to do the assessment. We'll tell you what we think it is. If you decide to get it repaired here, then we'll credit
put that toward the price, right?
Credit toward the bill.
Yeah.
And you're like, I mean, just in terms of certainty.
It sounds fluffy.
That you're going to get your problem fixed on an old car. Like it's not great.
Right.
Take it to another mechanic, like this mechanic I have, he's 68 years old and he comes out and he goes, yeah, you know what? Hang on a second. Press on the accelerator. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This light came on. It shouldn't be, you know what this is? This is the throwout bearing. So it turns out Toyota used in 1983, 84, some throwout bearings that weren't fully tested. This is the 321705 bearing. These always failed at 60,000 miles. You got 70,000 out of it. If you don't repair it, then what'll happen is go all through the driveline. You're going to end up $12,000 through the driveline. We actually keep the replacement, which is a titanium new threading bearing, the 27403.
Yeah. This guy's got certainty.
I've done 7 of these a month for the last 15 years. Yeah. What do you want to do? It's $700. Leave it here. Come back on Thursday. We'll have it done for you.
Yeah. Right.
That is certainty. So
interestingly, I think the customer also perceives that upfront fee that you mentioned in the first example as a real lack of certainty on the part of the vendor that, you're going to get anything because you probably spend $350. They won't fix it. And if you apply it toward the bill, you don't really know what the ultimate price is going to be. So they might fluff up the bill to offset the $350 they charge you. So I agree that second example is far more certainty.
So that is dead center how somebody needs to perceive you. And I call that a flash roll.
Okay.
Right. It's just a good term of art for the ability to give very, very technical information at a higher rate of speed than if you were just making it up.
Okay.
That is dead, and it's not for comprehension. It's for credibility and expert status. And there isn't a person on this line that wouldn't benefit from, when a client or an investor or somebody gets on the phone from saying, right, this is the name problem, and giving a flash roll that really gets down into the technical details, whether it's software or real estate, that makes it obvious that they have solved or been involved with this issue or problem or situation 1,000 times.
Right.
And these things are like 150 words, 200 words, maybe 210 words at max. So it's a minute and a half of talking that is absolutely only an expert who has dealt with this many, many times over could really know. And of course, you've prepared it because these things are hard to do, on the fly. But that is something that instantly delivers the status of a domain expert in the space. They want to know who here has dealt with these kinds of issues, whether it's law, whether it's, real estate, whether it's compliance, whether it's software, as you said, whether it's, auto mechanics, who here has dealt with this at a very fine level of detail that is a true expert. And then you can get out and talk strategy. When I came up with this, I watched a couple hundred Squawk Box interviews. And really what I found through my own rating those, the CEOs that I thought did the absolute most compelling job selling their companies, and these are public companies, are the ones that could go way down in a level of detail. And then come back up and talk about strategy. Because the ones that I found not compelling were the ones that were going, the broader market indexes seem to be, increasing rapidly, and we're increasing inventories to match the, throughput of capital in our range of businesses. Right. And then I remember one, it wasn't Intel, but it was a semiconductor guy. He's like, yeah, I walked the floor when I was an engineer, and we're currently manufacturing 0.01 micron, which TSMC, achieved 0.01 micron, last year, but we're rapidly developing along a size of chip that would be capable in the early stage quantum computing machines. And actually, I was in Silicon Valley visiting XYZ Quantum Computing, and they're asking to use our first set of LMNOP chips. Like, wow. The other thing I said, that if you've ever seen this Undercover Boss, the show where, like, the CEO of 7-Eleven goes to a cheese factory, right? And like they pour the cheese out.
Yeah.
The thing that makes it funny is they don't know anything about the company.
Right.
That's the gimmick is, hey, I do know I sit back in Akron, Ohio or Detroit or whatever, and I pull the big finance levers, but, at the chip and salsa level of the company in which we do $300 million a year, I don't know anything. And I mess it up. But really, if you go to Squawk Box, the guys who are compelling can really get down into super tactical details in their business, come back out of that wormhole and keep talking about the strategic influence. And to me, if you want to talk about a pitch and covering the certainty gap, not of do you have the product, not of do you have the asset, but are you a true expert in this space? That is the skill set that signals to people you are both capable and competent in, in the business you say you can do.
Sure. Okay. So what is hot cognitions? What is that?
Yeah. So a hot cognition is an emotional state, right? So if you think of cognitive state, and a hot cognitive state is somebody who is making decisions on a space of being excited, a space of being emotional, and a space of being adventurous and dreaming about the potential of how the world and their life might be if everything went well, emotional. And so a cold cognition is a calculation. And I have a good example of this. I'm not sure if I even had it in the book, but a cold cognition is if you were saying, hey, I need to make a spreadsheet, right? And evaluate a risk-weighted decision matrix on whether we should enter this market.
So is emotion the difference or the lack thereof? It's
emotion and excitement, and really a hot cognition is about filling in the gaps on your own that might be there in the data. So if I'm pitching you something, right, and you're in cold cognition mode, right, and you're trying to get some comps, and you go, hey, you've only given 5 comps, and we really need 10 comps, fulfill our typical analysis of the market. If I could get you into a hot cognition state, your excitement would start to fill in some of those gaps. Like, we could basically see what's going on here. We're this person is super credible. We're excited about this market. We've been wanting to do it anyway. Let's not lose this opportunity. And really, if you wanted an easy way to summarize hot cognition, I would say it's FOMO and hype, right? And I say hype in a good way, not in a hypey way, but hype in a sense of highlighting really the most exciting things about the deal and engaging in fear of missing out. Put someone in a hot cognition in which they make hot decisions. I'm in.
Right. Okay.
And a cold cognition is where they go, send me the deck. We're going to run some numbers, send it out to our analyst, get back to you in a couple of weeks.
And then it just never happens. There's a zillion
or it can happen. It can happen, right? So but all of us have been through a spreadsheet, answered questions. And you're like, at what point are you going to suspend disbelief and trust us, that we're in this market and know how to flip this asset?
Yeah.
Right? So cold cognition, and I give you, I like to bring these down to real, I know we're cresting through, we're moving through double your time limit, Jason. So you can just hit the dump buzzer like they do in Hollywood. And
there you go. Yeah.
But if you think about it, they did this study of people checking out in the supermarket. And if you ever checked out and they say, hey, donate $1 to a starving kid, or, now it'd be donate. Was that the dump buzzer?
No, they're putting people on the spot when they say that.
Oh, no, I heard a beep. So I thought that was.
Oh, no, I didn't. Nothing beeped over here.
So they're putting people on the spot, right? So, hey, $5 to the hungry kids of, West Palm Beach, all the starving kids in West Palm Beach where you are. You want to round up, right? For the
round up for charity. Yeah.
Round up for charity. Yeah, exactly. And so what they find is that when they have people think about how much ketchup is and make decisions about this ketchup or that ketchup, or how much something is on discount, and did give them tough calculations to do at checkout, and they try and write, hey, this ketchup is 33% less. It's only $1.10 per ounce. And so this one is $1.21 per ounce for Heinz. They make them get into that cold cognition state.
Not good, I'm assuming.
They don't give in those roundup scenarios. So the brain is split, right? And that's why those have really, if you're young, you probably haven't seen that in a checkout in a while, and those have faded away because people don't give when they're thinking about in that cold cognition and trying to evaluate the price of food. And so that's really a big impact. So when you have people thinking about numbers and discounts and ratios and percentages and IRRs and ROIs and really getting down into that, although it's necessary, that's a cold cognitive state. Yeah. Hard to get them to make decisions.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. You want them in a hot
about
cognitive
people,
state.
ideas, but in some ways this can seem overly simplistic, but the issue is in the field we work in is finance, right? I understand if you're at a, at a dinner party or something like that, there's cold and hot, but we're in finance. Like we have to give people numbers. Right. We have to give people, ratios and indexes.
You just don't want to live there though, right? In that cold cognition.
Always have to bring it back.
Yeah.
Always have to bring it back to the human narrative, to FOMO, to the exciting piece of it. And so that's the secret of the pitch is yes, giving the information, yes, giving the detail, yes, giving the numbers people can make decisions on, but not allowing them to live in that cold analysis. So I think you were looking for a 33-word definition of hot cognition, and that was a 7,389-word definition, but it still sticks.
Oren, I got to tell you, I've got a great idea for you. It seems like all of your stuff, the flash roll, status, cold and hot cognition points that you made, right, totally applies to the general social life world, not just the business world, because just everything applies to it. So you ought to do another book on non-business, because the exact same rules, I think, apply across the board. Isn't that interesting?
That's great. That's a great idea. I would love to. Yeah, that is great. Yeah. And what examples do I use in that book?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I'm sure you've got some, but we'll figure it out together.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah. Just a touch on some flip the script, and looking for that through that table of context, you talk about pre-wired ideas, plain vanilla. Tell us about those things.
I think plain vanilla is really exciting concept, especially in real estate. But even more so in software entrepreneurs. What software entrepreneurs or software business people try and describe their product as new, breakthrough, exciting, never been done before, new kind of business model. We're super creative. Our CEO is a Elon Musk, prodigy, type. And as it turns out, the reason you do that is the novelty. This is a breakthrough software. This is no other software can do this kind of thing. This is a completely next generation capability. We have some machine learning, AI, all this stuff in it. And the reason we do that is it attracts people from the standpoint of novelty, and it gets them to pay attention, right? But the reality is people want to buy things that have a lot of certainty on them. So it becomes like this squirrel, as I use an example in the book, going back and forth with the bag of potato chips. Gets close to the bag of potato chips because it smells amazing, right? But the bag then touches the bag and it makes this wrinkly noise and it freaks out and runs away. But it remembers that amazing smell of Dorito, comes back closer, touches the bag, runs away. So the novelty is what attracts people, and it's why people use it. But the newness, lack of experience, credibility, context, user base, the newness of it makes people retreat to things that they're familiar with. And so the way around this that I've discovered is to frame something up as plain vanilla. This is exactly the same as the last 300 software packages that were released in the market, except for this one thing. And that satisfies both the need for novelty, but it doesn't give too much novelty, right? So especially in real estate, there should be one sort of patina or one coat of paint one thing that is new and exciting and compelling, but otherwise this is the exact same deal. Multifamily is a great example, right? Because I'm not in multifamily, but I think years ago they added like the kitchen, the cinema, in that central area where people could really enjoy these.
You mean a clubhouse?
Clubhouse. Yeah. And it was a little bit different here in San Diego, right? So you have all these workers at Qualcomm, they have to live in multifamily close to it, and so it's not really a clubhouse. It's a kitchen, a cinema. It's like these amazing high-end things they wouldn't even have in a house if they owned it inside that multifamily, right? And so then you can pitch it as, hey, look, this is a 200-unit infill Southern California deal that's been done 1,000 times, right? The key metrics are the same. The IR is a little bit better, ROI is a little bit better, but the thing that's different here is this amenity package, right? Instead of saying we have a totally new concept to sell to, and the newness of it repels people, the sameness of it brings people in, and the one exciting idea adds the novelty to pull people over the line. Much better to present things as plain vanilla and reduce all these risks that's perceived in new ideas, and have people comfortable with the deal, but excited about the one extra thing.
So in other words, the idea is the novelty, because before when we started, you talked about novelty, right?
Yes. Novelty is manageable.
It's the one thing. It's just one thing. Right. Because, when you talked about that initially, I remember some of my old studying of Brian Tracy. And I remember, this was decades ago when he said, if anything's more than 10% new, the market will reject it. Right. Like you probably heard him say that. He used to say that all the time. And so I thought, too much novelty is bad. But so what you're saying is have just a little bit of novelty for sure, but the rest of it's plain vanilla, right?
I think when you get into the deal world, 10% and a little bit aren't specific enough.
Of course they're not. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so this is Brian Tracy.
He just said 10% off as, that doesn't mean anything, but you get the idea. Yeah. It's an example. So it's metaphor.
I think in Flip the Script, I go through, a couple of deals where you see what layer of novelty we selected in order to get a deal done.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think that's I think largely that can be true. New things are brought to market all the time. I worked for a billionaire, Steve Kim at Alcatel Ventures. I learned a lot about this. And he said, listen, companies that we invest in never fail to build the thing they're going to say. We don't invest in cold fusion or, rockets to Mars. Right. They either build the software, build the semiconductor, build the radio tower. They build all that stuff. They never fail. Yeah, it might take them a year longer or they do a patent infringement, but they get around that. They build the stuff. The issue is the market doesn't show up. And so there's too many risks stacked up in certain areas. So we have to decide what risk bricks we're willing to load up on, and when those risk bricks are too heavy for our investment equation. So it's more precise. It's sort of projecting into the investor or the buyer's risk stack and saying, where are the risks that they don't want to have an evolution or a revolution in, right? And frame those out and get frame control. That's the plain vanilla part of the deal. What's the part of the deal that they can get excited about and accept a risky brick on that part of the stack?
Right. Yeah.
It's more intricate than
10%. I get 10%. It. Yeah.
So I think that chapter in Flip the Script is very good at articulating how, if you're in a deal, to choose what part of the deal is plain vanilla,
mm-hmm.
and what part of the deal has novelty, and how that flips people into hot cognition, how you get frame control on them, and then use the moral authority frame and the time frame to create an investment decision. So these things start to plug in together like Lego pieces, and they all work together.
Oren, your stuff, you've really defined this so well. I commend you for that. And, you know, I read Pitch Anything years ago. I'm going to go back and read that again, and then Flip the Script also, I think, was like 3 years ago for me. So I got to review that one too. But just excellent advice. Thank you for sharing it today. Give out your website or any resource you want to share with our audience. Okay.
Yeah. I think if you go to pitchanything.com, that's the easiest thing to spell. And there's lots of resources there. You know, video, as you can imagine, videos and things like that. I think that the thing, you know, there's a lot of books out there. You know, a lot of those guys are academics, like they've never been, so, you know, in a business deal. So these psychological topics are really interesting when they come through the lens of people who have done lots of deals in a hardcore finance and have really seen these, you know, it's not bringing in 19 college kids, you know, and having them draw something on a piece of paper and then offering to buy that piece of paper back. Like, what does that tell you about, you know, getting into Goldman Sachs and doing a $100 million ABL? Like, fuck off, honestly, right? So these ideas through the lens of actual real world deal making is so valuable, and that's what's been.
Yeah, like your airport deal, I really liked reading about that one years ago too. And you talk about that in the Pitch Anything book. Thanks again, Oren. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, bye now.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.